Hey everybody, my name's Caleb, aka the Furniture Cowboy. My wife and I have gone full-time furniture flipping here in Austin, Texas, transforming random dressers and furniture we find here in Austin into something truly spectacular. We've got a pretty awesome one for you today, so without further ado, let's get right into it. We started off as usual by taking all the drawers out of the dresser. After trying to pull the first drawer out, I realized that they were locked in place. That's pretty common. Sometimes they're screwed in. In this case, there was a little switch on the track of each drawer that I just had to flip, and then it came right out. Once we had all those drawers out, we went ahead and cleaned everything with Simple Green. And we recently switched to sponges, which have like a coarse side and obviously the spongy side. If there's a particular spot that needs some extra attention, I just apply some Simple Green to the coarse side and give it a good scrub. In the middle of cleaning, I noticed some cobwebs and stuff inside the dresser, so I paused to vacuum those out before finishing up cleaning. Next, we move on to sanding any little imperfections and scuff marks on the sides of the drawers, just to make everything look uniform and nice. For this, it's best to just let the sander do all the work. You're really just taking off that very topmost layer of wood. After that, we move on to scuff sanding the whole body. For the large flat surfaces, we use the orbital sander, and for the harder to reach places, we use this Diablo sanding block. The Diablo block is something we recently picked up, and we love it because it has kind of a spongier, soft side, as well as a more dense side. After scuff sanding, we hammered in some nails that were poking out. On the top part of the dresser here, the wood had kind of splintered, so we broke off any splintery bits before going in with some Bondo. While we wait for that Bondo to dry, we move right along to measuring the cutouts for the drawer fronts. Before we got started on this piece, we actually took a week-long vacation, so we were a little rusty. My wife had trouble measuring the drawer fronts, making sure she wouldn't cut right through to the side of the drawer, but she quickly found her footing and moved right on to using the compass to create semicircles on each side of each drawer. This part was pretty hard, and we kind of messed it up the first night. But later on in this video, we kind of got in our groove, and we'll explain exactly how we did it in a little bit. For our first attempt at cutting the hole in the drawer front, we made 2 starter holes with the drill for the jigsaw, and as you can see here, our jigsaw was just not up to the task of getting smoothly from one hole over to the other side and back around. We ended up making these huge angular cuts with the jigsaw before going in and tidying up. After struggling with one drawer, we decided to put a pin in that and finish up our night by trying out our new router. We set up the router with the round over bit and tested it out on some scrap wood to make sure the depth was at the right level. Once everything was set up, we went ahead and tried it out on our drawer front. The next day, we started off by measuring the rest of the cutouts for the drawers. Since it was tough yesterday with just the 2 starter holes, we decided to make 4, 1 on each end, as well as 1 at the center of the top and the bottom of the hole. Now on to creating those semicircles. For this, we had to measure the center of the part that we're going to cut out. After we figured out the center point, we brought that midpoint inwards to create the center of our circle. After that, we used the compass to make sure that the radius is equal on all 3 points. Then we repeated those steps for the rest of the drawers. Starting on a straight edge with the jigsaw with those 2 extra holes that we cut definitely made things a lot easier. But our jigsaw was still just not up to the task, so we decided to take a pause to try to pick up a quality jigsaw from Facebook Marketplace. As you can see, we also needed a new blade. With the Bondo now nice and dry, we went in with the orbital sander to sand everything smooth. With that, the body was all set to go, so I went right ahead with our first coat of primer. Our favorite primer is the Kills 2 all-purpose primer. We don't have to thin it out or anything, we just pop it in the spray gun and spray. After waiting about an hour, we followed it up with a second coat. Everyone always critiques us about when we choose to wood fill, but honestly, I prefer wood filling after priming because it just makes it so much easier to see all the imperfections. When we used to do it before priming, there would almost always be spots that we would miss, so this way we save time, and I haven't noticed any difference in terms of quality of the finished product. With everything primed, we were ready to paint, so we headed back to our apartment to pick up our first ever quart of chalk paint that we'll be using from our friends over at Good Bones Paint. While we're there, we're also going to measure out 1 fluid ounce of water. This paint totally blew us away and has become my new favorite black. If you guys want to give Good Bones Paint a try, please consider using our affiliate link down below. That'll let them know that we sent you over. Also, don't forget to use code COWBOY at checkout for 5% off. Once we were back at the garage with our paint, we sanded down those wood-filled areas and moved right along to painting. While we were on our week-long vacation, I accidentally left polyurethane in our paint sprayer for the entire week. So once we were back, we did a deep clean on the sprayer, and when I put it back together, I accidentally tightened things too tight. It actually scared me at first because I thought it was the paint, but once we fixed the sprayer, loosened things up a bit, it honestly sprayed better than any paint I've ever used. As a matter of fact, it sprayed the way I had always thought paint should spray from my sprayer. For a while now, I've been thinking about upgrading my sprayer, but now I think the paint might have been the problem. In between coats, don't forget to give it a nice scuff sand with 400 grit sandpaper. You can't really see it here, but we only used about half a quart for this project. Since we're waiting to pick up our new jigsaw, I decided to go ahead and do what I could with the drawers that we did finish. So I'm just gonna go ahead and sand down that previous stain. We recently switched over to sanding nets. Sanding nets made sanding so much easier and helped us get down to bare wood faster than regular sandpaper. For sanding, we start off with a 120 grit, then move up to 220, and finish off with a 400. In the middle of doing this, our foam rotary pad broke apart on the new DeWalt sander, so I had to go back to using my old one. Once we picked up our new Bosch jigsaw, we started right in on creating the remaining holes. With the new jigsaw and blade, it cut way faster and turned way easier. With all the holes cut out of each drawer, I went ahead and started rounding over those edges. We had an idea that we thought would look really good for staining. We were going to start with a white stain and layer it with a walnut stain. I think we might have messed up by using gel stain for both, but in any case, we hated the way the stains looked. Luckily, we were able to immediately remove it with mineral spirits. We let those drawers dry overnight before starting over on the sanding process on the ones we had used mineral spirits on. Once the drawer fronts were ready, we laid out the burlap to measure out how much we would need for each drawer. One thing that made this a lot easier is the drawer holes were the perfect size for us to fold the burlap hot dog style and cut it in half. In the past, when we've done burlap on drawer fronts, we haven't liked the way it looked when we pull it tight, and we also don't like the way it looks when we leave it a little loose. So since we have this backing laying around anyway, we're going to use that to provide some structure behind the burlap. Once I have those measured out, with a little bit of trial and error, I'm going to go ahead and cut 6 of those out on the table saw. Always be smart when you're using the table saw. Some of the camera angles here make it look like my hand is super close to the blade. I promise it was not actually that close. But always use common sense and be careful. Once those were all cut, we used some Mod Podge and a foam roller to attach the burlap to each of those pieces. We gave those time to dry before cutting off the excess with some scissors. Using the jigsaw created a lot of sawdust, so in our downtime, we vacuumed all that up. All that was left was for us to attach those to the inside of the drawers. To do that, we used our new electric staple gun. We picked this up for about 20 bucks from Home Depot. Some of the staples didn't go all the way in, so we're just going to tidy that up with a hammer. Now that everything is assembled, it's poly time. We loaded the sprayer up with polyurethane and gave everything 2 coats. While my wife Lilu used some lithium grease to help the drawers slide more smoothly, I went ahead and attached the handles to the drawers. The last thing I had to do was create some pieces of wood for the back of the dresser, so all 4 legs would have something to attach to. With everything done for this piece, we went ahead and carefully put it onto our furniture dolly and rolled it over to our staging garage. So finally, the big reveal. Here's what the dresser looked like before, and here's what it looked like after. Thank you guys so much for following along on this one. We bought this piece for $20 on Facebook Marketplace. We listed this piece, and after being on Facebook Marketplace for one day, it sold for $900. Thank you guys again for watching this video, and have a flippin' awesome day.